I am from Cape May County, New Jersey, right at like the bottom tail of the state.
Okay.
I grew up like 5 minutes inland of the beach. Pretty small town. My mom likes to tell me when I started as the grumpy shepherd in a Sunday school play, I was still in like my single digits at that point. I have no recollection of this play, by the way. My mom is always like, that's when I knew. That's when I knew you had it in you. I grew up watching all of the old Rodgers and Hammerstein films, so I always had an affinity towards theater, musical theater. I was lucky I got, living in New Jersey, I was pretty close to New York City, Philadelphia, so my parents took me to see shows. So I like sang in choir, played in band, took dance classes, but never really put it all together until my freshman year of high school. I was like, oh, I should try out for the musical. And that was it.
And what was your start?
Godspell. Yeah, I didn't do a straight play until my senior year then, when I was like, I think I'm going to continue to do this, so maybe I should do a straight play. So after high school, I went on to pursue musical theater in college. I went to Shenandoah Conservatory.
And what did you learn there?
Oh my gosh. It like literally makes me cry thinking about it because I loved it so much. I loved my time there so much. I learned a lot about myself, the good and the bad.
Okay.
When you are stretched and pushed to your limit, like physically, talent-wise, all of it, sides of you appear that you didn't know existed. So I learned a lot about myself in general and my capacity. One thing I very much appreciated about the program, they centered you as a human first. I'll never forget the director of our program and music director of our program after our last acting through song class, our senior year. They said, you know what, guys, above all else, we just want you to go out in the world and be good people. That is what we are proud of. Like, we are proud of you. Like, accomplishments aside, just go, like, enjoy your life, enjoy what you do with your life, and like that's all that matters. Got engaged at the very end of my senior year to my now husband, luckily. I knew I wanted to pursue my Pilates certification as like my backup pretty shortly after I graduated. So moved with him to the greater Philly area, pursued my certification and, regional theater in the area for a while. Realized, around 2015, which is the year we got married, maybe wanted a little more consistency in my life. Had started becoming very interested in environmentalism and design. I grew up in a family of contractors, so ended up going back to school. Pursued a master's in sustainable design. Ended up working for a startup, which nearly killed me by the end of it. Like, fried my nervous system. Ended up getting pregnant in 2019. Had my son in March of 2020. Yeah, he was born a week into lockdown.
Wow.
And I was already at like a transitional point in my career. I was thinking like maybe I want to like get into education, which kind of blends all of my backgrounds, and always, having loved being a student myself, and then had lots of time to think about that. My dad unexpectedly passed away in 2021, and that, I think, is the start of the beginning of what ultimately led me here, because with any major loss comes a huge shift in perspective, of course, of like what really matters, what is really important. And my husband and I had been toying with the idea really ever since the start of the pandemic, when he was a gig worker at the time and completely lost his income. So when, literally everything was kind of pulled out from underneath of us, we were like, do we want to try moving? Do we want to get a camper and just like travel for a little while. Like we have nothing keeping us here right now. We randomly decided to visit Tucson. We had like a long weekend to get away.
You just randomly...
Just random. I've always loved the Southwest, but I'd never been to Tucson. We were renting an Airbnb in Oro Valley, and it was a little overcast. It was like raining the tiniest bit. I'll never forget like kind of starting to enter Oro Valley, putting the windows down a little bit, and just getting that whiff of creosote in the rain and being like completely taken. I just like knew in that moment that this place had a very special magic. And the Rogue was my very first audition.
Really?
Here. Go figure. And again, I felt like as soon as I walked through the doors, I could feel like, oh, there's something special here, which just like, you know, perpetuated as soon as I actually walked into the space and met Joe and Cindy and you.
Right.
Again, like after my audition, I remember Cindy being like, so, like, hi, who are you? Where did you come from?
That is a Cindy question we sometimes hear at auditions.
Yeah.
So your first role with us was Honor Blake in Playboy of the Western World. What was that show like as an introduction to the Rogue?
So, unlike anything I'd ever done.
Cut of cake! For you should have a thin stomach on you. You who walked to length of the world.
Like the specificity of the language of that piece was so unique and special. So at first, of course, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But it was so funny, was so entertaining. Of course, just being like a kook with Shannon and Chelsey with an A was the best. And, you know, getting my first real taste of what it's like to work here. The energy amongst the ensemble members, the collaboration between the ensemble members, how safe it felt was, you know, stood out so remarkably.
Can you tell me more about knowing immediately that you were safe? How did you know that, and what does that mean?
Well, I think now, you know, working with the ensemble and vocalizing, like, we celebrate mistakes, like, yay when we mess up. I think that's the best way to, like we're literally here to play and see what works and what doesn't.
Right on.
The fact that it's an ensemble-based company makes it different from anything I've ever experienced, because typically you're working with such a transient community.
Everybody's
always
passing through.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why closing shows was always so sad, because you're like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna like work with you again. But it was fun for the 4 weeks that it lasted, you know?
Is that hard at all as an actor coming in from the outside, acting in your first show at the Rogue, and you're in a play with 10 other people who've been working together for 5-10 years?
Yeah, I was expecting it to be hard, but it wasn't. I felt immediately welcome. I felt immediately like I was a part of the collaborative spirit of the group.
You're currently in rehearsal for A Doll's House as Christine.
Yes.
How's that going? What are you up against in that role?
Again, it's been so challenging. That, I mean, they literally say in the script, Torvald says, like, after I leave, oh, she's so boring. Like, you know, not a whole lot of animation going on.
It's very natural play.
That makes it difficult because it's so stripped down, and because if you're not speaking from a place of, like, total honesty, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Oftentimes it's the things you think are going to be pretty simple and straightforward end up being the hardest.
Sometimes the hardest thing to be is just like a person standing there.
Yes, exactly, without any embellishments.
Yeah. If your life is a book, what is this chapter about?
In the last year-ish, like a recurring question in my mind has been, what does home mean to me, especially, relocating across the country from a place where I had essentially lived my entire life. Finding home within myself, like no matter the exterior circumstances of my life. I was recently thinking about a quote from Maggie Smith that I think was circulating around shortly after she passed, speaking about theater, how it's essentially easier to be on stage than it is in the rest of one's existence, because at least for those 2.5 hours, I know exactly who I am. I remember reading that quote and thinking, oh my gosh, yes, that is why I love this. With each character you play, it's like, okay, what parts of this human are also a part of me? How do I let this part live freely through this experience? And boy, how much do I learn about myself in doing so.